because we have level 1, 2, and 3 turns. Level 1 is like your standard touch up paint, clean it up, rent it. Level 2 is like touch up paint, so they punch a few holes in the wall, stuff. And then level 3 is they left all their belongings there. And this is actually very common. Like they'll leave, it literally looks like they still live there. And it's kind of sad, but they'll leave all their belongings in it. I'm talking about everything. And, food in the fridge, the power's been off for 4 days. There's meat in there, so it smells great in there. And then, full on flooring replacement, paint, everything. So you're looking at, level 1's probably $500 and less. Level 2 is 500 to 1,000. Level 3 is 1,000 to $3,000 damage.
Brace yourself for a wild ride into the unexpected. This ain't your typical success show. I'm here talking to real folks who've been through it all, skipping the fancy business talk for authentic stories. We're diving into childhood dreams, teenage escapades, and everything in between. No scripts, just the stories that truly mold success. Each episode takes you on a journey through those breakthrough moments that paved their way. No fluff, just genuine stories. So whether you're chasing dreams or just love a good story, buckle up for wisdom, laughs, and the unexpected. This is the Breakthrough Podcast, where success is a journey, not just some fancy destination. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button now and join our Breakthrough crew. I got some incredible stories to share, and you won't want to miss a single one. All right, guys, welcome back to The Breakthrough with Stephen Husted. Today's guest is someone who knows the chaos of real estate all too well, Nathan Milazzo. He's a guy who's lived through the trenches of D-class properties, the kind that has you thinking, do I really need to bring a 9mm with me? Nathan's learned the hard way, and he's here to share his gritty stories that no one talks about, the crazy tenants, surprise expenses, and the mental toll it takes. But now he's leveling up to B-class properties, chasing bigger returns with fewer headaches. We dive into why he's ditching D-class, what vertically integrated really means for your wallet, and get ready for some brutally honest truths about the ups and downs of investments. I had him on the podcast a while back, but the audio came out bad, so we reshot the podcast. So here we are. Let's get into it. All right, Nathan.
Hey.
We're back again.
That's right. I hope this time will be interruption free.
You're going to be, now you're considered my second guest to ever come back on the show.
Oh, well, awesome. I'm honored.
Well, and it's funny because when we did that episode, it was so good and you dropped so much great information, and we did a couple little short form videos out of it, but then the gentleman does editing for our podcast. He's like, his episode, he's moving all around. It's a little bit chaotic.
It's a sneak peek into my life, man. My life is chaos at all times. I mean, low income apartments will do that on top of I balance a couple other things like lawn care and property management and stuff like that. So it's chaotic. So it's actually probably a pretty accurate video of what my life is really like.
Yeah, I would say so. And you know what? It's a good way to kind of, chaotic is a good word. Let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Do you have little periods of time where it's just kind of your typical day-to-day, maybe your day-to-day issues, but then all of a sudden you have a few days that it's like super intense, and it maybe be happening on like multiple properties scenarios? You go through those ones?
Oh yeah. If somebody tells you they don't, they're lying to you. I mean, for a fact, because I mean, we have our day-to-day, business that runs, but you never know. I mean, I always say when it rains, it pours.
It really does.
Oh yeah. So like you can have a fantastic week where you're just like, oh man, this is, real estate is awesome. This is awesome. And then the next week you're like, oh my God, this is insane. We're babysitting for adults is what we're doing.
Totally.
Yeah. So trust me, it's, I'd say the vast majority of it's good. But especially this year, we've had some crazy stuff happen, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Okay. Well, let's, so why don't you give the audience a little background on where you're from, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Greenwood Springs, Louisiana, which is southeast Louisiana. I live in Gonzales now, which is in between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and we we're trying to get into more B-class stuff, but we still have some D and C assets. At first we just did D-class, like think ghetto, bring a 9mm with you everywhere you go kind of place. That's what we started out with. Now we're in a little bit, we have a few D properties left, but now we have some C and then a few B class actually still. So, and we're vertically integrated for the most part. So we have a full business that runs the apartments themselves, the maintenance, the flips, the lawn care, the facilities management, everything.
That seems like a different tone from the first time you jumped on the podcast. I
Yeah.
think, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
don't think were you in B class
No, not at
scenarios?
all. And that's the school of hard knocks that got me there. It's just because D class is great when you get it for cheap and the economy's good. Uh, and then the economy is not so good, and the tenants know that. And the problem we've had with D class too is it's not sustainable. I mean, you're really working your ass off for the money you make. I mean, 100%. And you get burnt out quick there. So we've kind of gotten to the point where we've paid our dues in real estate. We learned a lot from D class, and you know, I actually recommend a lot of people do D class at first because you learn a lot and it forces you to kind of be gritty and cutthroat. But I've met a few guys, about a year and a half ago that were 40+ year guys of D class real estate. And I don't want to be that guy, miserable people. Their home life is a wreck just because they're just constantly working. They're rich. I mean, the guys I know that do D class well, they do it very well and they make a lot of money. We're talking guys that are worth 20, $40 million, but, it's not the kind of wealth that I want. I want wealth where, I'm a hardworking guy, so I'm never going to say that I want to retire early or anything like that. But, I'm looking for stuff that's like, it's not emotionally draining, like return on effort. Return on effort in D class is very low, right? You're going to really work your ass off and you're going to make a little bit of money. And you can make good money too, but use it as a stepping stone to get to the better stuff.
I 100% agree. And I'm at that point too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
shifting too. I was like,
Yeah.
it's in some of my first properties were bought out in East Detroit, and I did it for a
Okay.
reason. Yeah. And I did it for a reason because I knew it was cheap and I
Mm-hmm.
knew that I would learn a lot and there'd be a lot of issues. And I just knew
Yeah.
that going into it. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Everything, there was
Yeah.
a
So,
ton of issues.
right. So for people who are familiar with Baton Rouge or like just in South Louisiana in general, I mean, you have New Orleans East. New Orleans East, half the time the police don't even show up there. I mean, you're talking about a crime zone. And then, it's really old abandoned. I don't know if you've seen like the clips on Instagram. It's like where the old abandoned Six Flags is, or No Man's Land or whatever. That's New Orleans East. And then in Baton Rouge, you have, it's called Tiger Lane or Bottoms. Bottoms is literally where Lil Boosie the rapper grew up. And that's where we have some properties still to this day. And it's funny, when I first bought them, I was like, oh man, it's pretty cool. Lil Boosie grew up in the apartment complex next to this one. Nowadays, I could care less. I mean, it is such a nightmare to manage. And there's a reason why Lil Boosie don't live there anymore. You know,
Right.
so, it's cool at first. You think you're badass when you buy these big complexes, but man, when you get into it, you're like, all right, there's a reason why the older, wiser investors are laughing at you.
What did you learn from those years of being in them?
Yeah, well, so I'm still in a few, but just like I said, return on effort. So you're dealing with people who are living there because they have to. So you're not dealing with necessarily financially savvy or even like good people at all. I mean, you see a lot of bad stuff go on there. I mean, I have kids. I'm not sure. I think you have kids too, right?
Yeah.
You see a lot of just bad stuff with kids going on there. There's a lot of drug trafficking. It's almost like operating an extended stay hotel. In my opinion, D class real estate really isn't even real estate. You're really running like a hotel, seriously, and your turnover rate's insanely high. And if you're actually like fulfilling your lease and you're holding people to their obligations, your turnovers will be high. The only way it's not high is if you're letting people slide and you're not really being a good landlord. You're just kind of being a slumlord. In those cases, your turnover aren't as high, but then your clientele sucks you know. So if you're really going to operate a D class property like by the book, which is like how we do it, your turnover is going to be high just by association. Just because you're associating yourself with a class of people who don't care if they move into a place in January and get evicted in April. They're used to moving 2 or 3 times a year. Uh, And one thing too that I found is I'm not really, and I'm not saying I'm better than these people, but it's hard for me to relate to their lifestyle because I've never lived like that. We grew up with humble beginnings and, a hardworking family, but I never was that low, right? Never in that scenario. So I find myself struggling to relate to their situations. So not really knowing how to like even help them out in certain ways a lot of times. So,
Could you?
whether it's,
I mean, could
okay.
you really help them out?
No, and a lot of times they don't even want to be helped. They want to, like, the way they look at it is, all right, when are you going to evict me and when do I need to be out? I'm going to leave that day and I'm going to leave everything I own in that apartment and it's going to be trash, and that's really what they care for is like, to them, they're like, all right, I'm going to get over on the landlord and, I'm going to get 11 days. Cause in Louisiana, you can evict very fast. I mean, it's quick, but to them, they're like, all right, how can I get 11 days free rent? To me and you, it's like, why would we want an eviction on our record? They don't care about that. They care about like that 11 days they live for free, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why we don't do deposits. We do move-in fees. So, like, so say for example, your rent's $800. We'll do a $500 move-in fee and that's non-refundable day one. And that goes directly into our CapEx account. So it's already spent in our home. Like, so basically say you have 10 apartments and your turnover rate is 4 a year. So out of those 10, you have 40%. Then you have 4 people who pay their $500 deposits or move-in fees that go directly to that account to pay for those flips. And since we're vertically integrated, we almost get paid for, but we still come out of pocket, for a lot of turns too, especially if they're like level 3 turns. But yeah.
What does vertically integrated mean when it comes to owning apartment complexes? You're doing the property management. What else are you doing? And is that saving you money? And like, what do you do? Or is it paper losses? Is it a tax benefit? What is it?
Yeah.
What does it do?
Well, that's a good question. So, people who are listening, you need to, if you say you have a business like mine, you need to look at what's actually worth being vertically integrated on. So to answer your question directly is, we have our own property management, our own maintenance, our own HVAC, and our own lawn care in-house. And the reason why is because we kind of fell into it that way. It's not like we sat down and we're like, all right, we're going to make sure we keep lawn care. Well, I just so happened to have a lawn care company that was like, all right, well, it makes sense for me to just do it in-house at cost, right? Than pay a couple $1,000s a month for these bigger complexes in the middle of the ghetto. That would normally cost me 3 times that amount. So we were able to save money there. And especially with apartments, you don't want to necessarily like cut every expense because then you're like losing quality there. So the question that, a listener needs to ask themselves when they're in this business is, what makes sense to be vertically integrated at? Do you have a cousin that has an HVAC business that can do work for you at cost? Then it might make sense to bring that in. Or do you have, I don't know, a door to dumpster service that you know of, that your friend has, where you can start easily at low cost? So, I know I'm kind of dancing on the question, but us directly, we have that in house. But for everybody else, it might not make sense for them to have all that in house. For us, we kind of have to because of our turnover rate and just what we manage and everything is so dense. Like all of our properties are really close to each other. So it makes sense for us to be vertically integrated. But for some people, it might not. But in my opinion, in our market and in the assets we have, if you have third party management, you're getting robbed somewhere, so it's like, it's whether or not you care about stuff like that. I'm super cheap, so like I'm looking at like, all right, nobody's going to screw me over, right? But a lot of times, we end up screwing ourselves over, cause we bring in stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense. And, that's another thing we learned last year, especially, you know, you have these guys you hire, but just because, you have the guys available doesn't mean you have all the work for them. But they still have to get paid or you're going to lose them. So
they're going to move
you
on.
have to, right. Yeah. So you really have to have enough assets, to make that worth it for you. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
What was the first asset class you got into? It
was D-class.
D-class, apartment complexes.
Yeah. Apartment complexes. Yep. Yep. In the middle of the ghetto. Think what you see. I'm sure you have very low income areas near you too. Just low income, very low income.
Yeah, I had a lady on my podcast recently, and she had bought in like a D class in like Stockton, and she had some wild stories.
Oh yeah, oh we got them.
The way she went into it too is like, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to prove the value. I'm going to help with
Yeah.
the tenants. I'm going to do this and all this stuff. And it went horribly not that way. So she
Oh,
was just
yeah,
like, I'm
no,
out.
no. Yeah, no,
But she
and like
learned
I
a
said,
lot.
yeah,
She learned a
and that's
lot.
why I always tell people too, like, especially, you get younger guys, and I don't know if it's me, but, I tend to attract a lot of like younger guys who are trying to get started. Uh, I start charging people too, by the way, but I'm not. But anyway, I always tell them if you're getting the D-class real estate, you have to go into it because it's a good entry level thing to do, right? Because it's kind of sort of low barrier to entry. They're easy to find. They're always for sale. I mean, because everybody's like me, they're getting burned out of them and they're trying to get rid of them. But it's it's a good way to cut your teeth on. But if you go into it knowing the BS you're going to deal with, then you can do okay. But if you go into it all excited, like, oh, I have a business plan I'm going to implement. I'm a month one, I'm going to do this. Month two, I'm going to do this. Month three, I'm going to do this. You're going to lose your ass
Quick.
every single time.
Quick.
Every single time. Because they're going to go there and you're going to present the tenants with this great idea that you're going to do. You're going to say, oh, look at this idiot. We're going to just take her to the bank. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're 100%.
Yeah.
Because I've learned too about low income communities. It's, they get together like, it's like a small community, like a little village, right? And it's always, for whatever reason, us against them. It's like and I wish we could change that. We try kind of, explaining to them, like, hey, look, we're trying to work together to help you. But they always reverted back to getting together amongst themselves and doing it their way. Like we've even tried doing monthly rent. That was kind of a nightmare and a mistake. I don't recommend doing that. Cause it
Wait, say that
encourages them.
again. What was that?
We tried doing weekly rents.
Weekly
Like,
rent. Got it.
yeah, like, if your rent's $800, we would charge you, $50 a week on top of what it would be interest to kind of break it down. Because one of the excuses we got were, oh, well, I'll get paid every week and I have bills and if I could pay weekly. Well, they just kind of trapped us because as soon as they realized that as soon as you accept one payment, then there's a whole 30 days you can't evict them because they technically paid on their rent. So they're not as dumb as they make themselves out. Like they're actually pretty smart people. They know how the system works. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, finding what really ways are really going to help them and what ways you're trying to help them, but you're actually screwing yourself. That's, very important. And it doesn't have to be necessarily like us against them. It's just, in my experience, we're dealing with professional tenants is basically, if you ever heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
People who know the insides and outs of like how to work the system. Again, they're getting evicted 4 or 5 times a year anyway. They know how it works. So, and screening, we try doing that. With lower income, you kind of have to ease back on your screening a little bit just because you will have tenants, but what you can be strict on is, like you're saying, your movement fees and your kind of your rule set and having somebody on site, like kind of like your mayor, we always call them. But I'm not by any means saying rent to anybody with a pulse. That's not at all what I'm saying. We always check for, sex offenders, criminal background, stuff like that. And we try to get them to where they don't have an eviction in the last year. But, I just recently found out a few months ago that there's actually a way around that as well. Because after you get evicted, you can appeal the eviction 30 days after you've been already kicked out of the unit. And they'll 9 times out of 10 just appeal the eviction if you pay $100. I didn't know that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you're already out the apartment, but you'll get it off your record. You get it expunged for $120 if you just appeal it. And the thing is, they send the appeal to your office address, and it's like, all right, is it worth going to court to try to like prove this person was evicted, or you just let them? We just put them in our system and make sure we don't rent them again.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and that might just be a Louisiana thing, but it's kind of crazy how stuff like that works. But
How many partners do you have?
so it's me and two other guys that own market properties, but each building, like I have a few buildings that I have on my own, and then I have some with my parents, and then I have some with just one partner, and then I have some with other partners that aren't in the management part of it,
So,
like investors.
how do you deal with, when you have these issues in this D class as far as paying rent? Like, how do you determine, your cash flow on a monthly and how you live outside of your investment property? It's like, how does that? Do you make enough cash flow that you can have a 20 to 30% vacancy across the board that helps you, like that it doesn't really matter?
Yeah,
Is that how it's working for you?
yeah, and we're very under leveraged for the most part.
Okay.
But and that's another reason why we're getting out of D class is predictability of income. Because we always pay ourselves the month after. So it's not like we're predicting we're going to make that month because there is no predicting. You have great months and you have bad months. So for the low income properties, so say, it's June, we're getting paid for May, you know, so that's always how, and I think a lot of people do it that way, but, we're paying ourselves in arrears and we're always paying ourselves a lot less than we actually made just to kind of put it back in the property, like I was saying, because you have moving fees that account for most of the repairs, but I'd be lying if I told you it covers all of it. I mean, you have some, because we have level 1, 2, and 3 turns. Level 1 is like your standard touch up paint, clean it up, rent it. Level 2 is like touch up paint, so they punch a few holes in the wall, stuff. And then level 3 is they left all their belongings there. And this is actually very common. Like they'll leave, it literally looks like they still live there. And it's kind of sad, but
Mm.
they'll leave all their belongings in it. I'm talking about everything. And, food in the fridge, the power's been off for 4 days. There's meat in there, so it smells great in there. And then, full on flooring replacement, paint, everything. So you're looking at, level 1's probably $500 and less. Level 2 is 500 to 1,000. Level 3 is 1,000 to $3,000 damage. So a $500 moving fee is not going to do shit for
No,
level 3, unfortunately.
it's almost like you're swirling that money around between properties.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Well, not between properties, no. So each property is operated as itself. And that's why.
okay.
Yeah. So if you did that, then you'd be in trouble because your good properties will start suffering because your bad ones are tearing it down.
How do you run that with like as far as taxes are concerned, like QuickBooks or whatever software? How are you tracking are you tracking them unit by unit, or is it property by property and it's
Property by
gross?
property.
Got it.
Yeah, property by property, and we use that folio. So like every property has its own like profile, I guess you can call it.
Yes.
So like we run reports like as a company in general. Like we want to see what our occupancy is as a company. But as far as like individual buildings, because we do have other partners in each building, we run them as a complete separate business, complete separate bank accounts, everything. Yeah. And we have our own management in house, but we don't have any escrow accounts that we hold. We only manage because it's cheaper. So it's not like we have this legit like office somewhere where we have a secretary and we have virtual assistants and everything, but we run the management company for the purpose of saving money, not for a profit. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Who takes care of all the banking scenarios within the business? Are you guys doing it as partners, or do you have a bookkeeper, CPA, like managing that whole? Because that's another business in itself.
Oh yeah. So, no, we have a CPA that does our books and everything, but we also we run off EOS. So we have L10 meetings. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with stuff like that, but so each individual building has a weekly meeting. So we have like a Monday motivation call of like, all right, last week sucked or last week was good. Let's recover and take positivity into the week. And then Friday follow up is just like kind of like, all right, what did we do wrong? What did we do right this week? Who did well? Who did bad? Who's getting fired? Who's staying? That's kind of how we. Yeah. No, I'm serious. And so we incentivize our employees too, and then I want to treat it like a competition. We make it very known, like, hey, look, this person killed it last month. They got bonus for it. They're the person to beat, right? And I don't know if you ever heard. I forgot how the quote went, but it was like a guy who owned like a steel factory or whatever, and he would just go in the night shift and write the number of steel plates they were putting out on the floor with chalk. And he'd go back from the morning shift and say, hey, last night, the night shift, they did like 10 or whatever, 10 pallets of steel, whatever the hell it is. And in the morning shift, we just do 11 just because they're like, oh, we got to beat the night shift. We do exactly the same thing across the board for our properties. Like, hey, look, last month they hit 96% occupancy. They killed it last month. Y'all only did 91 or y'all did 88 or whatever it is. What's going on, right? And you're not like, bullying them by any means. We don't
like accountability challenge.
Right. It's an accountability challenge / like kind of kicking the ass, being like, hey, look, these guys are beating you, and we let them know.
Yeah.
And we also tell them, hey, look, they did this and this last month. Maybe you can try that and see if it works, because every building is different. And it's even in the same market. Some things work in certain areas and everything like that. But as far as marketing goes, I always challenge everybody here locally. If you're looking for an apartment from $700 to maybe $1,200 a month in the Baton Rouge area, there's no way you won't see our ads. There's no way. Like, we got you beat already. You're already going to lose, right? So, and our employees know that. So in our perspective it's unacceptable to have a certain amount of, tours and leads come in without a certain amount of leases signed. You know, so they already know there's a threshold, and we don't put up with much of that. Like we fire quick. You know, so it's
You got to
and
hit.
like for
Sometimes you have
example,
to do that.
yeah, yeah, and again we have good people. We've went through it, a lot of people because of it. But if a property manager is below 85% occupancy, they already know they're fired that Monday. They already know. So it's a little harsh, but in the business we're in, and again, that's why we're pivoting. We already have one property, and we're hopefully going to be on the contract on the second one that's B class, because it's run a little bit different. It's a little bit less cutthroat, it's a little bit professional, it's a little bit more uh predictable. You know, with C class, you're literally turning and burning every single week, and it's again, you're operating an extended stay hotel, and you're
Yeah.
working. You know.
Yeah. And sometimes those numbers look really good. The Detroit properties, the cash flow
Mhm.
is pretty damn insane, but all
Yeah.
it takes is, a couple of issues, 3 squatters,
Oh
an
yeah.
eviction. And next, you haven't done anything with one property for a year and all you're
Oh
doing is,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Well, see,
People
and
don't
that's why we
understand that.
operate. Yeah, but that's why we operate the way we know that, right? So that's why we operate the way we do, because we understand that like it's so easy to fall behind the eight ball. Like
Yeah.
it's you can fall behind. Honestly, I believe that it's actually inevitable if you're not operating the way we're doing. You know, is we're constantly advertising. We know that next month we're gonna have X amount of vacancies. We just know. You know, but yeah, and like for example, like and there's also nuance too. Like we had a fourplex in the middle of the ghetto one time, and one tenant, he was a subsidy tenant actually, decided, you know what, he's the boss of that building now. So literally he tied his pit bulls up in the little center hall and said, hey everybody, I'll run this place now. Y'all gotta pay me rent. And so what happened?
What?
He ran off all the other tenants, all three of them. Now we have a fourplex with one tenant there. And so we're all right. Well, are we going to evict this idiot, or are we going to keep him and then try to fill it and then evict him later? But the answer is you have to evict him, because anybody you put in there, he's going to run them off too. So now you have a vacant building. People don't account for that either. So you can go from full and killing it to absolutely vacant. And I know that's an extreme example, but it happened, you know. And I always tell people, if it can happen, it will, 100%,
Yes.
especially in low income housing.
Oh yeah. He's on Section 8.
He's actually VA,
Oh, 8.
and
Okay.
we've actually had great experience with VA. They're great guys, but we have had a few clients that are a little bit mentally challenged or a
Mhm.
little bit mentally scarred. Uh, I think that was the majority of it. On top of, he wasn't necessarily a good person to begin with, but but yeah, so that is an extreme example, but it happens, you know. So you have to kind of account for stuff like that and keep your savings account high.
Yeah, it's I understand the whole D and C class. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think the problems are going to be in the B class?
Uh,
Because I think
so,
there's problems in all of them. They're just
oh
different
yeah, no,
problems.
no, no, yeah, the different problems. So the problems there is your price per unit, and down, especially where I live, is insurance. A lot of institutional debt, believe it or not, does not make sense anymore, uh, on the coast. Because, for example, I have a 90 unit, you know, our 90 unit before we had, local debt or whatever. And then we have, actually our mutual friend Matt put the debt on it. So we have, I think it's a Fannie Mae loan, and I think it's like 4.3% interest, which is incredible, right? But the insurance requirements are
Yeah,
insane.
definitely.
So we went from paying like $74,000 a year to 110, on that same exact building. So now you have to account for that. So I feel like there's definitely challenges with B class. It's just more operational at that point, and your barrier to entry is it's a lot harder to get into them because of the competition. There's guys like me and you who've done the C and Ds who are like, all right, yeah, never again, right? We know too much, so we're all trying to go after the same product. So it's a lot more competitive. But luckily we have a pretty good pulse on everything that goes on with those assets, and we have a pretty good pulse on off market deals as well that we can kind of go after.
And how's the inventory in that B class
So
scenarios?
right now, there's a lot of assumable debt loans out there.
Oh,
But yeah, a lot. But I really think, especially in like South Louisiana, but it's really because of the insurance. Their insurance. We're actually selling one of our D-class properties because of that same reason, but we actually were smart with it. We put really, really good institutional debt on it. and we levered it, actually kind of over leveraged it, but it allowed somebody to come in and say, all right, well, I can assume this debt for like 100 grand, very low barrier to entry, right? And it's institutional grade product. So we can get rid of this product. We've already made our money. We've cashed out refinance three times. But now we kind of shot ourselves in the foot because we have to do a 1031 exchange with no freaking capital to do it. So now I gotta pull money out of my pocket to buy this other asset, but I'm accomplishing the main goal. The main objective was out of the ghetto, right? So, we're actually letting somebody assume our debt, and somebody too, they're going to do well. The property is a fantastic property. It's just they have a fresh set of, goals there, a fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of money. They can come in there and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. They'll sell it in 5 years or whatever we're going to do with it and move on. So I think that's what I think D-class is fantastic for. I've just done it long enough now where it's time to take the next step into something better. Or not even necessarily better, just something else.
Different. It's just
Yeah,
a different class. So when you're picking up the B class, what is your objective? Like, are you setting a 5-10 year type, look out on it and trying to figure out how you're going to improve the net operating income on it? And like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So a lot of times it depends on the deal, but our objective is like a 7.5 year hold, 7 years or so. And the reason for that is because we know that year 1 and 2 are going to be, especially year 1 is going to be kind of like your test years. All right, what works here? What's the tenant base like? Who's late? Who's not? Like kind of like what's your occupancy? What's your competition doing? Stuff like that. And a lot of that from just being in the market, but your first year, you really get to kind of concrete those assumptions. And then, obviously we want to pay down the loan enough and we want to cash flow. So we don't buy deals that don't cash flow. We're not speculative at all. We only buy deals that they cash flow. So that 7 year term, and we also do cost segregation because a lot of our partners are high income guys. So, that 7 years is kind of our target, kind of like hold time. But hey, I mean, there's deals that I own today that I'll probably own for the foreseeable, for a long time, just because it doesn't make sense to sell them. It's fantastic property. So, it really depends, but our main focus is 7 years.
For those who don't know what cost segregation is, please explain.
So you're basically, it's
I know it's kind of a big one, but
yeah.
Break it down a little bit.
I'm not a, cost segregation expert or anything like that. I'm just telling y'all from my experience what I know about it. It's accelerated depreciation. Meaning, so, you hire a cost segregation engineer to come out and say, all right, well, the life cycle of that light bulb and light switch and whatever times how many light switches and light bulbs you have across the property is worth this much. So say, and it's at this point of its life cycle. And you have somebody come in and say, all right, well, this is how much you can write off per year. And you're accelerating depreciation for about 7.5 years in most cases. So say your property makes 100,000 this year. You can write off most of the time all of that income you just made. Plus, so say you have a construction company over here on the right that you own 100% of. Now you own this apartment complex, but you made $1 million in your construction business. You can write off the loss on paper against your income over there at the construction business. So it's another tax benefit. It's how Donald Trump got away with paying like $600 in taxes the year he got elected president. And hey, look, love him or hate him, the guy's following the rule book step by freaking step. That's all he's doing.
I know a lot of people they don't know that, but it's the truth.
Hey, look, they can hate him all they want, but at the same time, he didn't break the law. So that's what we're doing. We're pulling a Donald Trump.
Yeah, you're capturing all that depreciation in year 1 and just using it too. You're kind of kicking the can down too, because you have to.
Yeah, but the warning is it's not going away forever. Right. You're literally just kicking the can down the road, and hopefully 1031 exchanging, and you never know too, they could change the laws. That kind of affects people too, from what I've learned in the past. So say for example, you have all this depreciation, and you have tax recapture at sale. And for whatever reason, say some politician changed the law saying, hey, you can't 1031 exchange anymore.
Yeah, that'd be a big one.
Yeah, then you're screwed. I don't think that's going to change because a lot of politicians are using that benefit of 1031 exchange. But I'm not saying that it cannot. I mean, it can happen. So,
it's true.
Yeah, it's by no means a solve all, oh, we're not paying taxes. Yay. But you 100% can get caught with your pants down if you don't do it right.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. What were you doing as younger growing up as far as jobs? Like that led you into, because you're a people person, right? you
Mhm.
manage people, so to speak, right? What
Mhm.
were some of your first careers or jobs, let's say, when you were growing up? Like, what were you doing?
So I only had one. Me
Okay.
and our brother started a little lawn care company when we were like 16, and we grew it, and it's still, the company still exists today. I no longer own that company anymore, though, but I do have like a smaller, I guess, company you can call it, that cuts their own properties. But yeah, so that's actually how I got into real estate too. Is we were cutting clients. A lot of them, say you're cutting some lady's yard, and she has a bunch of rental property that we cut as well for her. And we actually did very well. I think we had like $400,000 in gross revenue, and then we were young kids too, making a bunch of money, being stupid, blowing it all, partying on the weekends, doing all the stuff that dumb kids do. But it taught me too, how to sell, and I give incentives for people to use you over the other guy. Because lawn care, anybody, they're talking about a super low barrier to entry job. That is probably the lowest, because you almost have to sell your client on, hey, one, I'm not a drug head. Two, like, I'm respectable and young. And three, I do a good job. But there's nothing stopping you or stopping crackhead Fred from coming, doing all the yards you're cutting for $10 less per cut. So you see what I'm saying? So you have to constantly remind your people. Follow up is key with that business. I mean, sending Christmas cards, doing like little incentive things to your clients, because it's 100% not a necessary business at all, you know?
Yeah.
And when times get tough, most people, the first thing they cut is lawn care. So you constantly have to, sell yourself and reassure your client that you're the guy that this is why you're going with me. And so I did that with real estate. And that's actually like how I got my first property. Is I had such a good rapport with my clients. They would just vent to me sometimes if I was just like pulling weeds in their flower bed or whatever. And this little old lady, real sweet little lady, her husband, did a bunch of yards for them. He had a bunch of fourplexes, and he passed away. He was an older gentleman, but it was kind of like out of nowhere, kind of passed away. And she was like, I don't know what to do, because she was very like a homemaker type lady. She never really paid the bills. He just did all that. And she was all worried about, like, collecting the rent and everything. And that's what they lived off of. She's like, hey, I don't know how I'm gonna like live now, because my husband's not here to show me like how everything works. And I think I saved up like $2,500, because I was making good money, but blowing it like you wouldn't believe. And and
You didn't know what to
so,
do with it all.
oh man, dude, I mean, you're typical early 20s, we're smoking weed, drinking beer kind of guys. So, but anyway, I saved her some money, and I gave her that as a down payment. And I actually was going to buy all 24 units. Okay. For $2,500 down. I was just going to pay her a monthly note. And she actually tried talking me out of it, because she was like, I don't know, it's a lot of work. But my dad actually talked me out of buying all 24, so I ended up just buying the fourplex, and my buddy bought the rest. And he still owns, which I kick myself to this day. Like, talk about a deal, man. But he still owns the 20, I still own the 4. It's a great property. I paid $2,000 down for it, and that's literally how I started. I mean, I got a fourplex and a 32, and another 32, and a 10 and 90, and a handful of other ones. And it literally started from lawn care. Just knowing, just having the knowledge of doing it, because I was listening to the podcast while I was cutting grass, and being relatable and personable, and being trustworthy too. Like, that was one of the things. She didn't even think twice about doing the deal. She was more worried that like I was in over my head, because I was just some nice kid that she knew, you know. So that to me is why I have the success I have today, is because I know how to relate to people, and I'm a trustworthy guy. I'm honest. I do what I say I'm going to do. And that's it, man. It's just basic business principle.
Seems like a perfect segue into real estate, actually, when you
Yeah.
were talking about, everything that you needed to know how to do.
Yep.
Sales, showing up on time, being
Yeah.
personable, knowing how to talk, and, being able to have a conversation. And
Yeah.
that's a big, big part of it,
And the
especially in real
bar is
estate,
really
building a
low.
relationship.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
bar is actually very low. I mean, if you think about it, like, how many, that's one thing where I think we kind of stood out too with market properties, is how many times have these tenants in these buildings been screwed over by other slumlords, right? So we put it to where, like, hey, look, it was very hard, and it's still, again, not a perfect system, because they still don't really trust us, but they don't trust landlords, right? Just like a lot of, people trying to get their grass cut, who you guys are just screwing people over left and right, doing landscaping work or just cutting their grass, and you know what I mean? So the bar is actually low. It's just whether or not you have and I think it's kind of you're born with it, but it's also learned. is just kind of being personable, honest, and doing good work. I mean, it's not really rocket science. It's just not easy, you know?
Right. Well, it's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill. Now, I always tell this to people, like, it is not hard, but it's not easy.
True.
It's just, you have to, there's really no substitute for it. You're going to work your ass off, but at the same time, it's worth it, you know?
What's been going on in your family life? What have you been doing lately? What's been going
So
on?
it's kind of chaotic. Yeah. So my daughter's starting preschool, and then my wife is pregnant with my first son. So,
Oh,
she's
wow.
actually due in August.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So, and it's kind of crazy. She's due within a week of my daughter starting preschool. So that's gonna be kind of chaotic. And then my sister is due a week after my wife. So, it's a lot going on right now in family life. So we're trying to kind of, you know, I want to be there as much as possible. Then again, I have a business to it. So it's like, I'm being pulled in all kind of directions, but at the end of the day, it's why I do it. It's for them. So, a lot going on personally right now, for sure.
Any traveling?
So we do our normal, few vacations a year or whatever. We go to Florida quite a bit, especially, the Destin area. We spend a lot of time there. But as far as like, international, we haven't really gone anywhere lately just because I have a crazy 3-year-old and, a pregnant wife. So,
Yeah, it's hard
you
to
know,
travel.
yeah, probably. That's probably on hold. Look, my wife and I first got married, even when we were dating, we went out of the country a lot. We traveled a lot. But, and I always tell myself, you know what, we're going to be those guys that travel with kids. We're not there yet. I think our kids are too small. And like, we did Disney World last year and man, so I think we're good for a while,
That's a
yeah.
craziness right there. Did you
Oh,
go to
Disney
Orlando?
World. Yeah,
You
with
go to Orlando?
Orlando. Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the world of lines, man. It's not Disney World. It's the world of lines and
It's
overpriced.
crazy. No,
Yeah,
no, I can't
yeah.
do
I
it.
wasn't. I wasn't stoked. My wife grew up in a Disney family. Like they went every single year, which I thought was crazy. But I definitely did not grow up in a Disney kind of
Yeah.
family. But yeah, I'm good. I'm more of a beach guy. Like I like the Caribbean a lot, and but it's just being able to get down there. So, at Destin, Florida, I'm sure you California guys, not a lot of y'all know, but Destin, Florida is like the Bahamas to me. The water's crystal clear. We're lucky enough that it's a 4.5, 5 hour drive from us, so it's not bad at all, and it's beautiful.
It's a good
So
market to invest in. That's what
overpriced.
I've heard. That's what I've been
Yeah,
hearing.
it's
I don't know if
overpriced.
that's
Yeah.
changed, but
No, it's
didn't you bring that up last time that you wanted to get a place out there?
Yeah, I almost did. Yeah, I was going to, and I just wasn't able to make sense of it because I was trying to pull the whole David Green bigger pockets thing. I was like, all right, well, if it costs me $4,000 a year to own, but I'm going to go down there whenever I want, does it really, and the appreciation and the loan pay down? But you could say that if you're making 50 grand a month, right? But when you're making like 20, it's kind of like, all right, well, is that 4 grand a year or 4 grand, it could be more than that too. That was just me being optimistic. Is it really worth owning at 30 years old? No.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like I haven't accomplished enough to really justify having a vacation house. And this wasn't even a condo. This was a house. So, I got a little, your lifestyle creep. I still drive a work truck to this day, just because I'm kind of hard on myself, but like I always tell myself I haven't done anything to deserve a new truck,
Hmm.
and I beat the hell out of it too. So it's like, why, and it allows me, and my tenants don't know I own the properties either. So that kind of helps me with like blending in and kind of like being relatable to them. Cause as soon as you pull up in a nice vehicle, all respect for you is gone, you know?
Oh yeah.
So
They're just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
this
they're
guy's
like, oh,
making a
screw
lot of
him.
money off us.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. And so,
Time
and
not to
so,
pay. That's a
right,
really good
yeah,
line.
right. Let's get together and let's all not pay and see what happens. And that's exactly what they do.
We need
So
new
yeah,
cars now.
yeah, right. And so, that's kind of a long drug out way of saying it, but I decided not to buy it just because it was just, we don't need it right now. We're fine. I have a very nice house. We live on 9 acres of land. I have probably a nicer house than I probably deserve, but I got a
What
pretty
year
good
did you buy
deal.
it?
This was 3 years ago now, so not that long ago. And we did. I think our initial budget for renovation was like 80 grand, but I think we're in it for like 160 now, and we're not even like touched the upstairs yet. But just because it's an old home and it's a decent sized house, so it's like everything you do is 10x, right? And
Yeah. What
yeah,
have you had to
so
do to it? What is the big learning lessons from it? Did you have to like do all the rewiring and like
No,
window
so luckily,
retrofit or?
luckily that was done in 2006. But
Oh, cool.
as far as like the house itself, we completely. I mean, I can just quickly show you if I switch my. I don't want to mess it up. But anyway, we did the kitchen, we did the living room. So like, and I'm talking about like took walls down and like really did it, but we rebuilt it to make it look old, and that's a lot more expensive than I thought. So
Mm.
it's a beautiful house. I mean, we did the carpet tubs and I did a 6-person shower, which I've never put 6 people in, and it was the dumbest thing I could have done. But I have a 6-person
But you
shower.
have it now.
Yeah, fantastic, right? So yeah, so we overdid it for sure. And but hey, it's I don't really have anything else that's like a money suck. I love boats, but I refuse to buy a boat yet. I just because I'm not allowing myself, and I guess that's discipline. I'm not allowing myself to buy these things until I get to this point. And
Yeah.
savings is a bill in my house. So my whole family thinks I'm nuts, but I live like I'm broke all the time. Have to.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of a good thing to, it's a good way to be actually. You
yeah,
know when the time is right to do the things that you want to do as far as like buying the boat. That can come in
yeah.
time. And you'll just know when that's the right time too.
Yeah, and like, my wife's always the one that it's always she's more of like the spender, which is fine. But uh I am a little extreme sometimes of how cheap I really am, but I call myself frugal, not cheap. It's a different it's a classier way of being cheap. But it's just at the end of the day, like for how much real estate I have, like we're approaching 25 million in assets. And I'm always a crackhead for deals. So like I always want to have cash, because I'll tell myself, oh yeah, 2024, we're going to just build up cash and hold steady. Well, brokers know what I'm interested in. They know what I'm buying. So they
They
send me
send it
deals
to
that are
you.
off. Yeah. And they're basically, I know this crackhead. They'll get a few drinks in me. They're like, oh yeah, this crackhead will get it,
And
and
start
every
pitching
single
you.
time. Oh yeah, and like I go into it like this happened 2 weeks ago. This broker called me up. He said, "Hey man, let's go grab some drinks." I was like, "Okay, yeah, casual. A few drinks couldn't hurt." And I pulled out of there and I told my wife and said, "I think I'm going to buy this property at home."
Yeah.
Without any interest at all in buying it. It's just it makes sense, And he knew how to get me. So
Yeah, and that rush kicked in,
yeah,
you put
dude,
it
I'm
like
a
a drug,
crackhead.
and it's definitely like that. It is. It is.
I'm 100% a drug
It's
addict
a
for
rush.
sure.
It's a
Yeah. Oh
rush.
yeah. And it's just like, the come down is takeover. We call it the invasion period, but the come down off the drug is the invasion period. We have to like upload all the units, all the rent, like meet all the tenants. But hey, I mean, you got to work too. So I mean, it's a blast, man. I really am lucky. To my friends and family, I'm kind of negative sometimes, and but I'm overall, in my opinion, an optimistic guy. But I really am blessed for where I'm at for my age, and I think I've accomplished a lot. But I guess being in the soup all the time, it's it's easy to forget about.
Yeah, I mean, how old are you now?
I just turned 29, so I'll be 30
Okay.
next year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
You better get out of that D class soon.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, look, I tell you what, dude, having a supportive wife is if you didn't, I don't know how guys do it without one because it is such a roller coaster, you know. And we have interns that come in and they're always like, "Oh man, I can't wait to start my own business because it takes the ceiling off what you can make, right?" But I always remind them and say, "Yeah, but it takes the floor too, you know." And then when I say that, they're like, "What do you mean?" It's like I've had several months where we make nothing, especially early on in the days. And imagine that you had to put money into your business and on top of that, you didn't make anything. So you had to be disciplined enough to understand, hey, just because you have, 200 grand in the bank and you could easily go buy this, yeah, it's great. You could say you can go buy this car or whatever, but you can't. I've had a lot of real world examples, especially this year of guys who've lost buildings, like
Yeah.
we
And
have,
how are they doing that, Nathan? So let's back up here. So there's money in the
yeah,
bank, and what are they doing that they're losing money? Like what's happening when they're
yeah,
losing a building? What's going on?
yeah. So a lot of it's
I don't know a
adjusted
lot of
rate
people
mortgages.
understand that part. So
Yeah,
let's
so a
dive into
lot
that.
of it is adjusted rate mortgages. And I don't think it's their fault, yes, but it kind of is not because nobody expected rates to go up that fast, you know? And so, especially with bridge debt, I mean, we have a property with bridge debt with Matt, that we went from making good money to barely nothing and we're just ready to refi now. But we're kind of holding off and everything. But Anyway, imagine guys who probably overpaid for properties, which happened a lot 3 years ago, and they put bridge debt on it because they wanted to bring some kind of value add to the building. And what happened is, let's say you have $1 million building, right? And that's on the low end. Let's say you have $1 million building, and in your opinion, it's usually a lot of times it's an okay building as it sits. There's really not a whole lot of value add per se, but 2, 3 years ago, value add was a sexy thing to do in real estate, right? Everybody was doing value add real estate. I was doing value add real estate, but we were still buying right? We were still buying on principle, not woosah. So a lot of these guys they got a little bit excited. They'd go to a conference. Everybody would tell them how badass they were, me included. Look, I'll admit it, but, their egos got a little inflated. They're like, you know what? We could buy this, overpay for it or whatever. And we're going to do a value add. We're going to put bridge debt on it. We're going to over leverage it. We put it at 90% leverage. Again, guilty of it too, but they would over leverage it. And then when the rates went up, so did that note. And they went from, say the note's 10 grand a month and the property's bringing in 20 grand a month and, all your operating expenses and whatever. But on top of the rates going up, so did insurance, so did property taxes, so did labor, so did everything else. So that $10,000 spread you once had turned into 2,000. And when rates went up, that 2,000 spread went into negative 2,000, negative 3,000, negative 4,000. And you started having to call your investors for cash calls. And as investors got tired of doing cash calls, and the bank took it back.
Yeah.
And we actually, we didn't necessarily lose it, but we had a lease purchase. I think we actually talked about it on the last one. It's a 30 unit lease purchase deal that the seller really couldn't afford to sell it because, if we gutted it to the dirt, and I'm sure you had me on Facebook and Instagram, you probably saw the pictures. The termite damage was insane. It was a pier and beam building. We gutted the dirt, put about 200 grand into it. Well, when it came down to actually purchasing the property from the lease purchase, the seller was just unrealistic. We're like, look, man, we're going to have to renegotiate. Rates are what they are. This is at the end of the day, it's the lease purchase. So we don't actually own the building, but we invested 200 grand in this building. Seller wouldn't budge, whatever it's his building. We just did not exercise the right to purchase it. So give it back. There's a $200,000 lesson right there, so I graduated from Harvard just now,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that freaking sucks. So yeah.
And you weren't alone either.
No.
We all went through it one way or another. It was like, this is good. There's going to be some pain.
Right. Oh yeah. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that my pain was nowhere near
Yeah. Yes.
Trust me.
That was making me feel good, actually.
Yeah. I felt great.
I was talking to my partners about that. Like, I'm like, we've had issues. We've figured out a way to, not make that mistake, hopefully down the road, and how we're going to do that. And I just knew from hearing other stories from other investors that I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. Keep going.
Yeah.
We have some properties that we're taking losses on right now.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. But the other ones are doing really great. So it kind of balanced it out, and we just sit still until that day
and
comes.
we kind of pivoted too, is that we've actually taken less cash flow now. Like, I think we're using this year, I know I keep saying that, but we kind of build our capital back a little bit. But we're actually paying ourselves less and trying to build the actual building's capital back as well, just to have a little bit more buffer room to where the building can kind of fix itself as it needs. Because I've got a few stories I can tell you really quick too. But back to the whole thing, when it rains, it pours. We had 2 major issues within the same month. Like, we were giving back this property 30 unit, and our 90 unit had a fire. Okay, a large fire. It actually affected 16 units. But guess how many units did our profit margin? 16.
Oh.
So, but see, luckily we have business interruption insurance. So we got some of that back, but of course they're gonna do you down, and we're not making anywhere near what we'd be making if it was actually running. But there's 16 well-behaved tenants. They're vacant, so they're just getting paid from the insurance company now. But anyway, and actually that fire. So here's another thing about investors need to learn. Fine print in your insurance. Read the freaking insurance documents, because this fire, and I have to kind of be careful how I say this because my lawyer is always getting on me, but this gentleman was a subsidy client and overdosed on fentanyl. And in Louisiana, I'm not sure the laws anywhere else, but if I were to give you fentanyl and you die, I get charged for murder, because it's how rampant it is down here. It's rampant everywhere, but how bad it is. And so, those people lit him on fire and are still missing. Okay. They're said to be in Florida or whatever, but so now it turns into a murder investigation or an arson. And in the fine print of our insurance, it says that, our business interruption insurance does not pay insurance for the life of the investigation, not because of the fire, but because of the investigation. So it's not like they're not going to pay us, but they're not going to pay us until the investigation is over. Does that make sense?
Wow.
So that
Yeah.
investigation lasted 60 days. That's 60 days for making $0,
Whoa.
$0 on a 90 unit apartment complex.
Oh
So
my gosh.
if we wouldn't have had savings, guess what? So that's why I always say I'm not above anybody who lost their buildings and do this, because at the end of the day, most investors are one fire or one flood or one storm away from losing all their shit, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I am not here trying to say that I'm better than these people that lost their buildings, because trust me, we got a very good, scary taste of how close we were, but luckily, we were disciplined and we had a lot of savings, and, I'm just glad to say we live to invest another day. And I think the saying is now, it's like survive till 25. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but I think that's kind of sort of true, but I'm not banking on it. Like our underwriting is for 7% interest, and that's kind of in the foreseeable future. So I guess all that being said, be conservative, and really make sure that you've got a good bit of savings locked away.
Yeah. Tuck it away. Prepare for everything and
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
it happens.
savings is a bill, man. Like that's what I always say. And sometimes it's hard, but savings is a freaking bill. And if you don't treat it like that, you're gonna lose it quick.
Yeah,
So
we went through that. We're in the middle of
yeah.
doing a flip, and one of my partners, I told her that, when we get done with this flip, we're
Mhm.
allocating a bigger chunk to savings just to have it there, because we were going through, like I told you earlier, a bunch of issues. When it rain, it pours. It was like, this property got broken into. They stole this, and this. This one's got this issue. This needs this. This is going on here. And next, we got, $30,000 worth of scenarios going on, just like
Right.
that,
Yeah.
in a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
days.
easy. Oh yeah,
In a
yeah.
couple of
And
days.
that's what people don't realize too. Like, that's why I get aggravated too. Like the conference guys, like I forgot what the word for them was. Like they're just always on that conference high. They're like, oh yeah, real estate is all upside. It's all good, 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 good. But those same guys most likely have the experiences that me and you have, but that doesn't sell. I mean, that's not sexy. you
Yeah,
know. And I think real estate really had this bullish run for a long time of like, especially with social media and these guys doing syndications and everything. But nobody really was talking about like the stuff that can really happen. It's not good. And I think that's all
I
kind
agree
of
with you.
being talked about. Like
I agree with you.
they always talk about the upside. I'm like, oh man, inflation's this, and you got to beat inflation, and you got to cash flow and all this. But they didn't realize that the good times don't last forever. And a
Mhm.
lot of guys, look, I've been shouting him out. Matt has really been my biggest critic on it, because he's always like, man, look, 'cause we were one of those guys. We were like, oh man, life's good. Hell yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep buying. But he kept telling me, he's like, dude, you were one bad deal away from losing your shit, and he kept, and Matt's very, he's very conservative and very like, if it doesn't meet his box, he doesn't look at it. And before I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense, but we can make it, we're vertically integrated. We can make it make sense. Right?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
There you
That's
go.
it. That
You're
is, that,
projecting right there. He's like, you're
yeah.
projecting.
No.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And so look, and now, I know I'm probably not as optimistic as I was the first time I talked to you, but it's because I've experienced a lot, and I went from, taking a pay cut, making good money. I'm making good money now too. But like, man, times were good. And I'm sure, things were great for a while. And, but those days are coming back too. It's just, those days will come back with experience.
Yeah, it's riding through the cycle and learning from the cycles and keeping that in the back in your memory bank for those days when you can
Yep.
see it coming, going, okay, we need to adjust back because we remember this back in this year.
Yep. Or like, hey, my math tells me we should pay, 70 a door for this property, but the guy is really persistent about getting 80. Should we give him 80, or should we say screw you and go find somebody who'll take 70?
Yeah.
That's, yeah, to me, that's my biggest weakness. Cause like I get that deal crack. I'm a crackhead. I get that deal crack in me. And I'm like, dude, I really want the deal. But now I'm like, I really think in business, you have to want the deal to like, be motivated to get it, but you don't want bad enough to where you'll make a bad decision. You have to kind of like kind of sort of want it, but like not care if you don't get it. And I think
Yeah,
that's the guys who have all the strength.
absolutely. You know, lately I've been taking some of my real life issues that I got going on
Mm-hmm.
properties or just scenarios, and I literally just paint that story into Instagram stories, you know, and just say,
Yeah.
hey, you should do this, you know, like do, you
Yep.
know, it was a really simple one. We just got done rehabbing a duplex in Kansas City, and one of the units is going to be a midterm rental
Mm-hmm.
for traveling nurses, doctors,
Nurses.
but we got a family that moved in from Hong Kong, and for some reason they just had a newborn somewhere in Kansas City. They're going to stay for 30 days and they're flying back. Well, we had some issues with this rehab. The attic needs to be insulated. The AC is not working good enough, and they're having a heat wave there. So we
Oh,
need to act fast. Two, my stager let me know that she found brown recluse spiders in the bathroom, in the shower. So we needed to, you know, get some spray going in there. And this guy's sensitive. He's bringing home a newborn and all
oh
these different
God.
things. So we had to work through it. Then we had issues with electrical in the
Oh
living
yeah.
room kitchen where it's old, where we couldn't do a AC window unit in there. So we had
Like
to
you could
figure it
take
out.
a 110 unit.
We
You,
we could, but we couldn't run it to an extent like any type of plug-in type scenario. So we ended up
mm.
running it a extension cord to the kitchen that just got remodeled to the
Oh
GFI
shit.
and did it that
Yeah.
way. And it looked clean and it's done and we solved it. But
Yeah.
I had to call 3 AC guys. I had to call 3 handyman to do it, you know, and we have people,
Yep.
but everybody's busy. So, you know, I
Mm.
put that scenario out on Instagram and then I put another one like, hey, when you have rental properties in your management, have 3 of everybody, you know, just so that
Oh yeah.
you
Oh.
know what I mean? Just those
Yep.
little things so that you're not like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Here it
Mhm.
is. Have these people call,
That's right.
figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, and that is good advice. I mean, I'm sure you have. I post Instagram. I don't have any like education, like, hey, you should do this. I just post like what I'm doing. Just
Yeah.
I don't know because I want to. People always see it. They're like, I'll be, weed eating the property. Like, I'm very do-it-yourselfer, or like we're moving couches away, or like I saw one a few weeks ago. We posted it. We crushed like we put all of our dumpsters in like we have one big dumpster at one central location with all of our furniture we put in it, and we have this crusher thing that comes and like literally just like crushes all the furniture so we can fit more in it.
Oh, wow.
And and people are like, "Oh man, that's pretty crazy." I didn't know it's like, that's required in property management. I'm like, well, I mean, it's not required, but it happens. I mean, sometimes you need to call a crusher guy. Like, and I say all that to say, like, you have to have people in your Rolodex. You have to know, hey, this month for whatever reason we had a bunch of couches, and couches take up a bunch of room in our dumpster. We can either dump it twice and pay $1,600, or pay $200 for the crusher guy to come and like literally like destroy the freaking couches and pay the $800 that we always pay a month instead of paying it twice. So we end up only spending $200 more. So, yeah, little stuff like that. Like, if people don't have experience, they don't realize, like, hey, it might be good to have a dumpster crusher guy in your contacts, or it might be good to have the guy with the big long plumbing snake that most people don't have because we have the cast iron pipes. You know, but and also too, how to fix little like pinhole leaks in cast iron. Cast iron pipes are a nightmare, but we just have a lot of it in Baton Rouge. Kind of hard to avoid. So, it's just little stuff like that, like you're saying, 3 of everybody, but also a specialist here and there too. Like a
Right.
guy who's kind of a yes man, like you yes man guy. That's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. You
Yeah. The
know?
one that goes in there and you got confidence. They're going to figure it out for
Oh
you.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. It's like a rare situation where a plumbing company is like, I don't want to do it, but I'll just charge the hell out of this guy. But like,
Yeah.
it's like a
Yes.
weird request. Like a lot of those weird requests add up a lot, especially in multifamily. Like there's a lot
Special.
of
Yeah.
weird shit that happens. Yeah. Like we had somebody flush a hairspray cap, like a little plastic cap down the
Yeah.
toilet.
Yes.
First of all, I don't know how it even fit down there, but it made it all the way past the toilet into the main line. Well, it was so far in the building, like obviously the very center of the building, so we couldn't reach it at the clear out line of the street, and we couldn't reach it from under a toilet in one of the units. So we have one guy that has this super long snake that I mean, plumbers have it, but they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for it. But he's our yes man guy, right? He came out and did it for like $200, you know. But if you would have to call like Roto-Rooter, they would have charged you $4,000 just to come out there and do the
Oh,
same
yeah.
thing. You know what I'm saying?
They would have did more than they needed to.
Yeah, yeah,
but
right.
tell you need it.
Yeah, yeah. They would have the whole concrete busted up. They would have had all kind of stuff going on. And like
Yeah.
they would have the road closed, literally everything. But
Yeah.
our do-it-yourselfer guy did it for a couple $100. You know?
There you go.
So
That's good.
that's
Well,
it.
I'm glad to catch up with you again.
Yeah.
So hopefully this time we're gonna get it posted, and we got good
Awesome.
audio, and the screen wasn't shaking around. But I just
That's
remember Angel was like, "You need to get Nathan back on because that was a good episode, and we did a couple shorts, but we can't
Right.
release it." I'm like, "All right, we'll get him back on." Where can
Yeah.
the audience find you? Are you on social media?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just Nathan Milazzo. It's NathanMilazzo. And I'm posting random stuff. You know, I'm not necessarily like an influencer, but I'll post shit I'm doing on there. You know.
Yeah. You show the shit, all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I try to be honest. That's one thing I try to like tell myself. I'm trying to show the more negative than good, you know, on there. But I make it fun. Like, you know, I take the negative and make it kind of fun. Like we get trash out days, man. My little high school, I got a lot of high school like interns that come work for us. Man, I love just making them throw up, and that's like a joy of mine. I have, you know.
I've seen those carpet reveals are pretty scary.
Yeah, yeah. Just always cutting it with the kitchen knife that they left behind. We'll do with dumb shit like that. That's like we don't necessarily need to use a kitchen knife, but like why not? It's in there, you know.
Yeah.
So just fun stuff. Yeah, it has syphilis on it and everything. So why
not? All right. Well, thanks a lot, buddy, for taking the time to jump on today. And yeah, I'll be chatting with you soon, and keep moving forward, man. Thanks for all the insights today.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care. Thank you for tuning into our show, where we hope you found inspiration and gained valuable insights. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to stay updated on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and share it with others who might benefit from it. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more candid conversations and breakthrough moments in the future. Until next time, take care and keep exploring new ideas and strategies.